You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. Joining him is everyone's favorite coach and hair model, Chris, aka Tex McQuilkin, Power Athlete's Director of Performance. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
This episode is part of our Move the Dirt series, designed to empower you with the tools to move towards your goals. Move the dirt is something we say a lot here at Power Athlete. The dirt is the dirt. It's that lazy, fearful, bitch mode voice in your head that says too tired, too busy, too old, too injured, too whatever. You can't reason with it, but you can move it. Some days you get a big-ass shovel in your hands and it's easy. You're strong, you're motivated, you're king of the world. But some days you get a spoon, and you still got to show up and move that shit anyway, rep by rep, spoon by spoon. So long as you're moving a little dirt every day, you're digging in the right direction. If you're sick of the dirt dominating you and you want to be master of your own self, walk the Power Athlete path with us. Visit powerathletehq.com/training and start moving the dirt today.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Power Athlete Radio and our third installment of the Move the Dirt series. For those of you that are just tuning in, we had two Move the Dirt series. The first one being me and some of my reflections of 2022 and New Year's resolutions or things that I'm looking forward to. Even though I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy, I like to get stuff started earlier. I did have a series of reflections. If you want to go back and check that one on, you can. And then the second one goes with our good friend of the podcast and the illustrious Mr. Rudy Reyes, who discusses how the body deals with stress and, more importantly, how he deals with mental resiliency, being not only former military, but going on and being an actor and being on two of the hottest shows this planet has ever seen. So Rudy is not only an amazing character as a human, but just one of the most dynamic people we've ever had on the podcast and one of the favorites. It's pretty amazing when I run into people and they know Power Athlete Radio. Rudy's podcasts are some of the ones they always want to discuss. So tune back into those and enjoy all things Move the Dirt. Here's the data. 80% of nutrition resolutions fail after just 1 month. What we help make happen is you moving the dirt past February 1st. So here's the deal. If you want to attack the year with purpose, stay the course, and hit your goals, you need Power Athlete programming. It's been battle tested at the highest level and gets results for every level of athlete. As a special offer this January, if you commit to the cause for a year, you get the full Power Athlete experience for less than $1 a day with an extra $200 of content for free, a one-on-one consultation to help you set your goals, and a nutrition protocol of your choice. Visit powerathletehq.com/training and start moving the dirt today.
Today we're speaking about movement. And Happy New Year, John. As part of many resolutions, people are getting back into the swing of things, back into fitness, back into movement, back into training, back into actually taking care of themselves. Maybe they were a little gluttonous over the holidays, and now we're aiming to set them on the right path when it comes to movement. It's not necessarily how much you do, it's how well you do it.
Yeah, I think a standard approach is just the shotgun, throw everything on the wall and sees what sticks for a lot of people. And I think the reason, actually I know because we owned a CrossFit gym and we've been doing this for a number of years, so I'll give you a little insider intel. The reason that people fail on their New Year's resolutions is because they don't have a concrete plan. The plan is very, very sporadic, and more importantly, it's steeped in things that they've never done. So if your idea is that, hey, I'm going to get fit this year and I'm going to do it by just trying to do everything at once and throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks, your outcome is going to be not as you intended it. So what we're going to hopefully help you do is create a nice formulated plan. But the big thing that I really want to focus on is the persistent perfection of movement. I want you to go out and really focus on not just junk volume, not just trying to do a whole bunch of things, but doing the things that you select and doing them well and doing them frequently.
Yes, and when you get back into fitness, and many people are selling right now, is the group fitness, the endurance, the more. And we're aiming to direct you to more weightlifting, more power, more quality of movement, because that's going to keep you injury-free. It's going to start to develop more musculature, which, as we learned last year with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, it's the organ of longevity that is muscle. So we're going to explore that a little bit and some of the concepts that make Power Athlete Program high quality and put you in a position to do more by technically doing less. To accomplish more.
Well, I think it's a pretty standard deal, man. I think when people go into the gym, they get this idea that I'm just going to pick, a random weight and I'm going to do it as many times as I can. And I think that there becomes a real issue with that, in that, one, if you haven't been doing anything and then you add a ton of volume, we're going to see a bunch of injuries. The one thing that derails, especially if you're trying to make a life change or, get back in shape, the fastest way you can get derailed is by hitting an overuse injury. All of a sudden now I'm sore, I'm injured, and I can't do anything. And instead of taking a step back and realizing the worst thing you can do is stop moving, people just stop moving. And that derails them. And then all of a sudden now, I don't know how to get started again. So what we always preach, especially this time of year, is consistency, focusing on perfect execution of movement, and having a well-formulated plan that incorporates, not only moving through space, but addressing some of the things that become limiting factors for people. One of the big ones we're going to run into and we can discuss here on movement is that trunk and that center area that most people refer to as their core, but what I like to refer to as trunk, which is really the midsection and the low back, and helping you develop proficiency and strength in those positions so that injuries end up becoming reduced.
Yeah, and a big fallacy, and I want you to keep an eye out and look out for this. If you're walking into the fitness realm and there's a cash out, meaning some form of abs to close out, not necessarily the order of operations that a Power Athlete Program would follow. We value that trunk highly. We understand its connection to health, longevity, decreasing back pain, and more importantly, getting strong. We put it right at the beginning, the prep work, before we utilize the barbell, so your trunk is dialed in and locked in, and you're in the best position to get strong, powerful, and fast, and avoid injury.
Yeah, this is a practice and a process that started many, many years ago, and I'll just give you a little bit of historical preference for this. As an NFL player, there were a few mechanisms that I saw happen that resulted in back injuries. So think about offensive line. I'm playing left tackle. Obviously, inside foot's forward, left side foot's back. As I slide back into pass protection, I'm trying to basically segment my body, put myself between the pass rusher and the quarterback. What happened was a lot of guys were setting back into that, good vertical position with their hip square. What would happen was they would rotate. And we've seen a mechanism for athleticism where the best in the world could kind of separate their upper body from their lower body. So as they set back nice and square to the line, there would be a rotation, and then guys would use their hands. If you've ever seen anybody pass pro at offensive line, the injury mechanism I saw over and over again was as guys were setting back or into a position where they rotated, then they got loaded into a frontal plane. And for those of you guys that might not know planes of motion, sagittal plane is everything straight ahead, like you're within a hallway or a doorway and I'm moving in this direction. Everything I can do in that hallway or doorway. Frontal plane would be moving side to side. So if you're standing here and I take a step to my left or take a step to my right, you're moving side to side. Then transverse is now a rotation. And in NFL football, especially offensive line play, when guys' feet were set and then they moved transverse rotation of their upper body and then got loaded in that frontal plane, and ended up resulting in a ton of back injuries. And I saw that mechanism play out over and over and over. Guys were sitting back, they rotated, and then they got hit from the side, and they invariably either hurt their back, dislodged a disc, and other things happened. So seeing this over and over again, and not being a crazy person, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different response, I decided to add elements into my training to prepare myself for what I saw was happening. So a lot of the dynamic med ball work and a lot of the positioning that you'll see within Power Athlete comes from me biasing the trunk early in my training, realizing that if this is the most high value stuff I need to do, I got to put it first. So, things like training calves, which we tend to put at the end of the workout, because for your calves to really get hammered, you need to be pretty fatigued. So, you think about slow twitch muscles and what it takes to really build calves. It helps to do it at the end of a workout after you've done all this work so that I can effectively overload them. But the trunk, no, I mean, that's something that fatigues, so you have to put that first. So as an NFL player, I put trunk training, and more importantly, understanding 3 planes of motion, which would be sagittal, frontal, and transverse, into the training program in different ways. So I could preface it. When I moved away from the NFL and ended up retiring and started working for CrossFit, we traveled the world educating athletes and training individuals, but we had no background in who they were. We would show up on a Friday, get to the place, show up Saturday morning to coach individuals for CrossFit football. There might be anywhere from 15 to 50 individuals that we'd never worked with in a foreign country, and we had to get them into a position to lift weights very quickly. But that required an assessment because we had to figure out who to triage and what to do, and we had to understand our athletes very quickly. So we started using the Dead Bug, Power Athlete's version of the Dead Bug, which is a basic ISO stability test. That is actually our first sagittal plane one we'll discuss, as a way to not only check for an individual's ability to arrange and maintain stability in their trunk, but also hamstring, dorsiflexion, and look for injuries within the shoulder. And what we found was that Dead Bug position really gave us a snapshot of the movement, ability, and quality of the individual that we were assessing. So from there, people sucked at it naturally because they had never seen it. And the prescription always became, how do I get better at dead bugs? More dead bugs. Individuals went away, did dead bugs, came back to the seminar. We got to see them again in a test and retest. Then all of a sudden, things like barbell movements and things that we saw them fail at, they were dramatically better at, and realized, I like to sometimes think that, I'm an N of 1, but for the masses, the dead bugs ended up translating into better movers in the back squat and the deadlift and more efficient moving through space. So it ended up being a silver lining in that it was an assessment, but the assessment became the medicine.
And certain points I want to pull out from that is the preparation and the assessment. Any good gym that you are walking into in terms of group fitness, each day should begin with some form of assessment. That's where we were able to accomplish with the seminar. It's also that our assessments were corrective exercises. Yep. We don't expect the gyms you're walking into to be on that level, but on powerathletehq.com/training, all of our training programs include some form of prep work that puts you in a position to succeed that day. Within the prep work, as John mentioned, he identified a limitation within a lot of people's training, and then the injury mechanism within his sport. That is an approach that we take. We understand that weightlifting to the point where we know where people will fail and how they will fail. So have these limitations built into the prep work. So it's not only the trunk, it's also biasing the posterior chain, good head position, good shoulder mechanics and function. So all different aspects that prevent injury, but also prepare you in your performance of the weightlifting that day are written into the program. And not a lot of other people take that approach. Their warm-ups are often, hey, let's just get our chili hot. Let's play a little athletic game to set the tone for class, but not necessarily specific to an individual's needs or a potential limitation within the lift.
Well, you're talking about the transition between a group training model where you're bringing people in, and it's really organized play for adults. I mean, lifting some weights. I mean,
recess.
People are having a good time. So you're going to go into a group training environment. There's going to be some form of warm-up. All the Power Athlete training programs, I'm not necessarily interested in warm-ups. Warm-up is what you need to do. If you need to jump rope, jump on the bike, go for a jog, anything you can to raise your core temperature.
Get your chili hot.
Get your chili hot. And get ready to train. The prep work that I have programmed, the majority is going to be some form of trunk, some form of rotation, different movements, is about prepping what we're going to do in the workout so that now you're prepared. Some of the programs like Jack Street, for example, will actually throw a little pre-exhaust where I like to, if we're going to hit some back stuff, we're going to, hit a bunch of rows to try to get a nice back pump before we go pull some heavy stuff. You're going to look at programs like Field Strong that might have more plyos. So we're going to have some prep work to get you ready to jump and be explosive. We're going to look at sprint work on hammer, grindstone, whatever it looks like. Each program is going to be designed in a way so that by the time you get to the workout, you're prepped, you're ready. And then, if it's basic barbell type movements, I'm really only interested in a few working sets or your top end set. Like, for example, if we're going to squat 3 or 4 heavy triples that it's programmed, You're not just going to go in, stack that weight on, and hit the triple. You're obviously going to warm up. But at the end of the day, as somebody who's writing a training program online, I don't know what you need to warm up. I can make suggestions, but I mean, I've run into athletes that might need 5, 6, 7 sets working up. I've also run into guys that need 2 or 3. So at that point, I stopped and kind of went away from programming warm-up sets and more programmed what I call working sets, really anything over 70%, maybe 75%, heavy enough to where you start to get clued in. You're going to have to start to work and, probably not, checking Instagram in between sets. But you're starting to get into where the weights are getting heavy. I got to be a lot more dialed and I got to have my technique on point, but I'm using those warm-up sets to effectively get ready to train. Let's say I'm squatting, getting my hips, getting my position, getting everything ready, but I shouldn't have to write a program where I'm telling you to squat 135 pounds for reps. It just doesn't make a ton of sense for me. But when I look at the training stuff, whether or not people are clued in on technique checks or post different links for their training, I only really want to see that final top set or even maybe some 1 or 2 of the working sets so that we can start making assessments, because unfortunately everybody lifts lights easily and well. I remember old man Zangus, when I asked him about it, he goes, if lightweight's got us strong, why the fuck would we lift these heavy ones? So when we start looking at like technique and movement, it really helps to have it be heavy enough that it's forcing us to bring our best game.
Yes. And the cool thing about the programs that utilize the program experience throughout your career, John, Jack Street, Field Strong. So we use different mechanics. It's not just, hey, this is our strength of the day. This is our conditioning. See ya. No, there's so much more, and it's this opportunity to unlock athleticism, or on Jack Street, target specifically functional muscle tissue, not just what appears to be show muscles. No, building those go muscles on the backside. So having fun with it, this high level of understanding of programming, arrangement, and then this map, this vision of an annual training cycle, depending on the goal, that is offered up to athletes everywhere. Mm-hmm. What we are going to give the audience today is a little glimpse into now the value of the coaching that we provide through our Train Heroic app, and that's through Intelligent Masters of Movements videos that are laid out there. So the training experience, yes, it's the X's and O's, it's the sets and reps, but also high value within the coaching. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we know where people will fail in these compound movements, and the more complex coordinative abilities like sprinting, jumping, and different things. And with the prep work, aim to put people in the best position to execute, but also still we need to load you up and challenge you. To help put you in that position is coaching. So we got 5 movements here that we're going to walk through, and Coach John is going to take you through them all. And we're going to begin with, as most Power Athlete daily training does, with the trunk. So John, set us up with 3 trunk exercises that we're going to go through that are a solid representation of what someone would go through each day.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier, those 3 planes of motion, your sagittal, your frontal, and your transverse, those injury mechanisms that I observed in the NFL are still injury mechanisms I observe in sport, especially contact sports. So these 3 movements are going to be used in those different planes of motion, and we usually tie them together in a circuit. So, for example, the very first one's going to be Power Athlete's dead bug. Our version of dead bug is a little bit different than the way other people do it, in that we have the legs straight, arms straight ahead, and what I'm really looking to do is pull down that top ab, flatten the low back, and then maintain that neutral position on the ground by moving my limbs independently. This is not as easy as it looks. We've seen a ton of people fail at it, but once you master the position and can do it, all of a sudden it becomes incredible for developing flexibility and not only in the hamstrings, but also in the calf and the shoulders. And it really becomes amazing seeing somebody go from not being able to do it and in a short, few months, all of a sudden become a master, and then also be able to track their progress as an athlete, and especially within training. So that'll be that first in that sagittal plane.
And with that, the beauty is once you've mastered this, then the dead bug, it becomes a personal check-in.
Yeah.
Oh, my hamstrings are tight. My calves are tight. Say we do a sprinting on Field Strong or hammer. We got to come back, and then you need to observe and feel where you are sore or there's limitations from previous training that you can pay particular attention to give that extra preparation. So it is a masterful movement, but that's just the sagittal plane. What else we got?
The next one is going to be our frontal plane and something we call reactive teapots. So what'll happen is, it really involves a kettlebell and a band. But what's cool about it, and for those of you that might not be familiar, there's something called a bamboo bar. And years ago, when I first went out to Westside Barbell, Louis Simmons was real big on what a bamboo bar was, in that it was this flexible bar made out of maybe bamboo or plastic or fiberglass. And what they used to do is they used to string kettlebells on the end, attached with a band, so that the kettlebells and the bands and the bar were kind of oscillating. And Louis used it to rehab his shoulder and thought it was incredible for developing strength and fixing injuries in the upper body. So we have always done what I call teapots, which is going to be holding a weight to the side and then working in that frontal plane.
Lateral flexion and extension of the spine.
And it's great for working not only the obliques, but also everything within that complex, all the way from the lats to the intercostals. And that position, that frontal plane loading, the one that I observed when I was an NFL player, became extremely important to find different ways to challenge it. So we started doing high knee versions and every version we could, so that I was strong in my obliques. So what I like about the reactive, so we started hooking a band around it, coming off of the bamboo bar, holding into that position. And then what was cool was as you dipped, when you came back, the reactive nature was forcing us into a bad position. So then you had to be strong enough in the good position. And what's cool is it was fixed. We could start going heavier and heavier and really challenging people's posture and position and their ability to maintain a good, stable position. So that reactive teapot was a game changer, especially when we're working with the fighters.
And Udo Moss, a homage to longtime friend of the podcast, Fairfax Hackley.
Yep. So number 3 is going to be called what we call the hack twist. Like Tex said, in homage to our good friend Fairfax Hackley. So what'll happen, double kettlebell clean, holding in position here, right underneath in that clean position, feet nice, good position, foot position, good bilateral. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lock down into that same dead bug position. And now I want to rotate back from side to side. This one is also incredible in terms of just developing that tension and that thickness and just really working that rotation in that transverse plane. So we talked about sagittal plane setting back, planting your feet, rotating, and then getting loaded. So now we're working on good stable position and working that rotation. And what's amazing about that one, we can continually go heavier and heavier with kettlebells. And as you start feeling the weight on your chest, now you got to hold that position and try to really kind of, and the analogy I give my guys is, imagine we have a wet rag and we're really trying to twist it and get all of the moisture out. So as they come through, being able to really hold it and then stay in a good flex position so that we can effectively wring out that rag.
Yes, and seeing is believing. So hopefully you're tuning in on YouTube video here or Spotify, because we're about to roll it. I don't know how to transition here.
Well, we're going to show the movements.
Yes.
So now our words actually have some meaning, so you can see what we're going to ask you to do with the dead bug, the reactive kettlebell, or a reactive teapot with the kettlebell, and the hack twist.
Roll it.
Hey, I'm John Welber from Power Athlete, and one of my contentions with the fitness industry is the word core. Because apples and pears have cores, and I never want this area here in my midsection to be related to an apple or a pear. So I like to refer to it as a trunk. Here in Texas, we have big, tall oak trees that have powerful trunks. So I'm going to take you through 3 different movements that we use here at Power Athlete to help you build a powerful trunk. For our first movement that we're jumping into in that sagittal plane, we're going to use Power Athlete's dead bug. Dr. Madzenis is already set up in the dead bug. If you see, he's got his hands straight out in front of him like he's sleepwalking. The legs are nice and vertical. He's working on good dorsiflexion. From this position, we're looking to challenge posture and position and that trunk by moving the limbs independently. So he can move his left leg, his right hand. Nothing changes within the trunk. What he's really looking to do is stay nice and strong and stable, pulling the top ab down, painting the ground with his low back, and then using the limbs to try to challenge posture and position. This is Power Athlete's dead bug. Our second movement that we're using to challenge the trunk and help develop that nice, strong midsection is going to take us into the frontal plane. Now, Power Athlete uses a ton of teapots. This movement I'm going to show you is a variation we call the reactive teapot. Mr. McQuilkin's going to take a couple resistance bands. He's going to attach them around a kettlebell. He's going to get into position with the kettlebell at his side. He's going to have his hand up at his ear, and he's going to dip into that frontal plane, going as far as he can to the side, looking to stretch those obliques, really get his QL involved, the intercostals, and also challenge the lat. The trunk is difficult to train and really challenge in this frontal plane, and we found these movements are excellent, especially on the eccentric and the concentric. If you go nice and slow, the analogy I give is if I was going to knife McQuilkin, I'd want to put that blade in nice and slow and make sure that he is really driving down and creating a good position. Nice and slow. Go as far as you can and then come back. Excellent. That's our reactive teapot. For our third piece of trunk training, we're taking you into the transverse plane to help you develop that nice strong midsection. Now the transverse plane is going to involve a rotation. We got this movement from the legend Fairfax Hackley. We call these hack twists. So Chris is going to take 2 heavy kettlebells. He's going to get them into that clean position. He's going to get nice and tall, and I want him to start rotating from side to side as far as he can. Now, if you notice, nothing is changing in the lower body, and he's really just coming from side to side. Now, it's pretty heavy. That weight's going to sit, and it's going to force you into a good position. So dig those feet into the ground, stay nice, strong, and stable, and keep rotating, working on that position. Excellent. These are our hack twists, our third piece of the puzzle. We just took you through 3 different movements that we use to build a powerful trunk. You're going to remember 3 planes of motion: sagittal, frontal, and transverse, to help build you a powerful trunk so that you can increase performance and look good on Saturday night. For this movement and many other that helps us develop athletic muscle, come check us out at powerathletehq.com/training.
All right, finishing up the trunk there with our 3 planes of motion. Now we're transitioning into building a strong base. The foundation of all Power Athlete programs are going to be some form of bilateral strength movement, whether it be a squat, different variations of the squat, different bars or deadlifts. We're always going to be in a position where we're going to challenge posture and position from that x-axis in a bilateral position. So that looks like a heavy squat, like we said, or a deadlift. But at some point, athleticism is going to transition into one leg, and we're going to have to get strong, especially when we get into that Z and X or Z and Y axis, where now all of a sudden we're going to be on one leg. And one of my favorite movements for challenging that unilateral is the Bulgarian split squat. Now, what's wild on that, when you watch people do it, they fuck it up a lot. And the reason being is that it's really on the back leg. So you got to get enough distance so that we're fighting for what we call hip extension. And for hip extension to happen, the knee has to be behind the glute. So as we go forward and we put it on some stable deal behind us, we got to make sure that we're out there far enough that we're fighting into hip extension. The other key factor is as I go down, we have to get a ton of positive shin angle. And we have to let that knee go over the big toe, because that positive shin angle is not only a hallmark of athleticism, but also driving a ton of work and effort and hypertrophy, damage, whatever you want to call it, mechanical tension into that quad, which is always going to be a limiting factor.
Yes, and unilateral. And the cool thing that I like about this is I can assess an athlete's right versus left. So now you as an athlete, as an individual, you can find an imbalance in strength between your right and your left leg. We are very good as humans as compensating movement patterns. So if we're doing bilateral movements like a deadlift or a squat, it's difficult for us to tell if there's an imbalance between our left and our right. There is no hiding that within this Jefferson variation. Yeah. And the cool thing, John, about the Jefferson is we can load that sucker up.
Yeah. One of the limitations we ran into with this position, especially on the Bulgarian split squat that I think most of the world fucks up, is the idea of taking a longer stride, getting the glute, the knee behind the glute so that we're fighting for hip extension. What became very difficult is as guys were getting stronger, finding different ways to load into it where they weren't going to break their neck just trying to get into position. So we had chains around their neck, we're weighted vests, kettlebells. We have all these different implements that we're trying to load. And unfortunately, it was hard to get them into a position, especially when we started blocking the heel up, elevating the front foot to get even more positive shin angle with the leg behind them. So to fix this,
And one more problem on that this is a solution for. Say in my garage or my gym, they only have dumbbells, kettlebells
Yep.
up to 75s, 100s. Now we're not limited by the load that we have.
yeah, we were looking for a solution. So as we were working with Victor Hugo for No-Gi Worlds, in December, as he got dramatically stronger, we were struggling for ways to load him where he didn't, because, obviously if we're training with him, we have partners, we could come put more chains and add different things. But the solution I was looking for was like, what if this guy is training by himself or we're not there to help load him? So we ended up going back into the archives and pulling out Fred Hatfield's power book. And there was a variation called the Jefferson Bulgarian split squat, single leg squat. And what it does is you set up into the position, but you actually run a barbell between your legs. And as you go down, you can grab the barbell and then come back up. So it was a more efficient way to load in that we could put a heavy barbell there. And then if they had to drop it, it wasn't as big an issue, but also as it allowed us to get them into perfect position, then all I had to squat down and grab it. Now there's a few limitations. One is going to be anthropometrical ratios of arm length. If you're extremely short-armed, as you squat down and grab, now as you come up, your ability to actually get to the top of the movement and get into full extension, or I guess you could say like the top of the movement, the starting position where you're extended, is going to be limited because the bar is going to hit you in the crotch.
I feel attacked.
You should. Because in the video, Xanis, who has extremely long arms
And legs.
is able to get into full extension at the top of the movement with the barbell without hitting his crotch. Pretty impressive. Now, for most people, that isn't a bad thing because what it's going to force you to do is stay in a loaded position, which is going to drive a ton of stress and, more importantly, increase that tension in the quad because you can't rest at the top. So you're going to come, it's almost like a squat no lockout. Mm-hmm. So as you go down and grab, you're going to come up, you're going to kind of hit your crotch. Hopefully you don't smash your crotch. You're going to come up just shy of lockout and you're going to go back down. But what's amazing about this movement, it allows us to get into position, load the movement, and drop it without killing ourselves, without having kettlebells, dumbbells, chains, and all the other stuff that we have mixed up. So it became a much safer way to do it. And then also allowed us to get the athletes set up in the perfect position, have them dip down, grab the bar, and then start working. So it really became beneficial for us as we were in the gym, trying to find more and more ways to load these guys
Safely.
that it ended up transitioning or, finding a solution for something we've been looking for on all the training programs.
Yes. So expect to see it in the training programs, but you get first glimpse here.
Mm-hmm.
Ready.
Hey, I'm John Welborn from Power Athlete, and one of the hallmarks of the Power Athlete program is a strong lower body. We do this by squatting heavy and pulling heavy. These are all bilateral movements. Now, to be a good athlete, we're going to have to get into some unilateral movements and put you on one leg. I'm going to show you one of my favorite movements that I got from Dr. Fred Hatfield to drive a ton of blood, strength, and help you develop some nice, thick, strong quads so that you're not weak in these unilateral movements, right? Because athletes, they got to change direction, they got to get on one leg. So I'm going to take you through it, and I'm going to show you how this works. This Jefferson single leg Bulgarian split squat that Matt Xanis is going to demonstrate is one of my favorites in terms of putting a ton of mechanical tension and driving it into the quad. He's going to set up in that Bulgarian split squat position, running the barbell between his legs, and he's going to go down, touch, and come back up. What's going to happen is the position of the barbell is really going to limit his extension and allow him to drive a ton of tension into that quad. The other key factor is having that positive shin angle to also be a driver into that quad. For this movement and many other that helps us develop athletic muscle, come check us out at powerathletehq.com/training.
And that is our Jefferson Bulgarian split squats. We're finishing up that strong base and we're moving to a phenomenon that you are going to observe if you walk into a commercial gym or maybe you're out for a few drinks on New Year's Eve. You're going to see something that's commonly referred to as ILS, imaginary lat syndrome. Now, this tends to strike younger dudes who just started banging weights, started training, who were, maybe hit some back, But I think it goes farther than that. I think as guys start to train, they want to feel bigger. They want to take up space. So what they do is they flare the lats like a cobra, which allows them to take up space. You might be out at a bar and a dude is just taking up a lot of space with his arms because his lats are so imaginary. So you're going to observe ILS, and I don't want you to fall prey to it. You shouldn't have to have imaginary lat syndrome. So we're going to show you how to build thick, dense lats that just look the part.
Yeah, look the part, act the part. And if you run into this guy in the bar, I mean, he's trying to make room.
Yeah.
And he runs into you.
And you have real lats
backwards.
and he has fake lats.
Exactly.
It's like, you go to the bar, you buy a drink, and the guy throws out counterfeit bills. We're not taking those things. We don't need ILS.
And we don't have time for that.
Yeah, we ain't got time for ILS. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you through a few of the movements, especially show you how to get the lat activated in that one-arm dumbbell row. So the landmark, and we actually learned some carryover from the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, that position one, that elbow pinned to your side, you're extremely strong. So as you go on that one-arm dumbbell row, I want you to think about pulling the dumbbell back into your pocket and then brushing the elbow against your rib cage like you're trying to strike a match. And if you can keep that elbow nice and tight to the rib cage and actually pull back towards the pocket, you're going to hit that lower lat. And really that's when we start to get that V, opposed from just pulling straight up, which is going to be more in that rhomboid rear delt.
Exactly. Execution is everything with this. So pay particular attention to the coaching here. In the training programs, we also aim to write in the coaching direction, what we want you to think about, the mind-muscle connection there, or the direction, the external cue, if it's on a field strong, more of an expression. So pay particular attention to what John leads Xanis through on this, and there's a lot to learn about the back, especially making this mind-muscle connection to it. That's where the gains start to happen. And then, I mean, ILS, that is a complete lack of mind-muscle connection because it's just air.
Well, I mean, maybe you're just connected to your being. Maybe your aura has projected out and is pumping your arms up. But also, when you see the guys with the ILS, there's a lot of kind of almost like rotation back and forth. They remind me of
same arm, same leg.
Well, it's like gunslingers when you see in the cowboy westerns where it's like
the bow-legged bros,
like when they're walking in the bar, ready for the
bow-legged. Yeah,
like they're ready for the showdown, like they're ready for the showdown at the OK Corral. They're going out on the street high noon and they're kind of out there like. So there's a lot of rotation. But ILS is a real thing. This isn't an internet phenomenon. This isn't some boogeyman, some urban myth. I have seen it, and I've seen it recently. And I don't know what to do other than the fact that you
can name names.
Well, you got to engage a bro, and you got to tell him it's okay. ILS is a real thing, and you don't have to live with it. You can actually develop real lats and not have to live with ILS. So come over to Jack Street, come over to the training programs. We will help you beat ILS, and you won't have to suffer.
All right.
Let's get to it.
Ready? Xanis, you don't have ILS, but
you got amazing hair.
Go.
Hey, I'm John Webb from Power Athlete, and I'm here to help you tackle ILS. ILS is a little-known problem that's plaguing men around the world. Imaginary lat syndrome is nothing to laugh about. It's defined as a common case of someone, typically a male, who believes that they are rather muscular when in reality this isn't the case. So to make up for this, they flare their lats like a cobra and look to take up space. Now, instead of creating this imaginary lat syndrome, wouldn't it be better just to tackle it and build nice, strong lats? So I'm going to show you my 3 favorite movements to help develop 3 strong lats, moving with different planes of motion so that you can be nice and thick and you don't have to rely upon ILS to help you gain some space or, more importantly, impress people during the holidays. The road to stomping out ILS is a tough one. We're starting with our first movement, the one-arm dumbbell row. This one's gonna be nice and simple. We're gonna do it from a standing position. Dr. Matt Xanis is gonna place his left hand on the bench, put his right leg back. He's gonna grab the dumbbell with his right hand, and I want him to focus on 2 things. 1, pulling the dumbbell into his pocket and imagining that his elbow is striking a match against his rib cage with nice, short, smooth strokes. Second movement on the road to helping you stomp out ILS and develop those nice, thick, strong lats is going to be called our incline dumbbell row. Mr. Xanis is going to set up a bench. It's kind of a little flat, but you're going to see why, because I want him just to clear when he reaches down and grabs the dumbbells. The trick is I want him to get enough off the bench so that it's hitting him in the bottom of the chest and his nipples are off so that he can get some good travel in his shoulders. From there, he's gonna pull those suckers back. Good. Bringing those dumbbells up nice and even with the bench. Really keeping constant tension and really striking a match with that elbow on that rib cage. Excellent. Our third piece of the puzzle to helping you develop nice strong lats and remove ILS from your life, we're gonna go unilateral and work on the one arm pull down. Now we're using a handle and Chris is in a good kneeling position. And what we're really seeing him do is rotating his hand and really pulling that elbow down into his rib cage and working on striking that match along that same position. Excellent. Imaginary lat syndrome has been plaguing gym goers for years. You might know a gym bro who's walking around right now, flared out like a cobra with ILS and doesn't know how to fix it. So what I want you to do is send them these 3 movements as your first strike against helping eradicate imaginary lat syndrome. If you want more help and more importantly, you want to develop a nice, thick, strong back and develop athletic muscle, come check us out at powerathletehq.com/training.
And you got a chance to see how to get those lats involved and prevent ILS.
Well,
only you can prevent ILS.
And you'll be in a better position to do that if you got the biceps to draw this person's attention and gain their respect.
Now you're talking
20-inch arms.
Now you're talking my style. I mean, big biceps have been a hallmark for a long time and always been the goal. So years ago, or not too long ago, I put out an article about how to get 20-inch arms. Little did I tell you that it really helps to have 19-inch arms and just get a good pump. But if you want to build 20-inch arms, here's the program that I used as an NFL player. What I ended up doing is just picking up a bunch of dumbbells and randomly inserting them in places in my house, whether it be the kitchen, over by where the TV, up in the bedroom, back of the truck, whatever you needed. And whenever I would stop, find a break, commercial, whatever it looked like, I would go in and I would smash a few different variations of curls. And I ended up figuring out that just a little bit of ascending volume, a little bit of consistency, frequency of movement resulted in a set of powerful arms. Now, obviously I was doing enough work on the other side to make sure it was beneficial, but there were a few key movers that if you have followed any of the Power Athlete programs for any period of time, you've seen pop up. The number one being the hammer curls. Now, this goes back many years ago. Trained at Zengis' place as a young kid, hearing the legends of Bill Kazmaier, and that, at least George told us, I ended up fact-checking him with Bill Kazmaier myself when I met him. He didn't remember it the same way George had told me, but it still makes for a better story. But he said the secret to Kaz's big bench.
I was going to quote Bob Wellborn quickly. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, no, God damn him. My dad had a lot of good one-liners. I miss him this time of year. But the secret to a big bench, at least according to George, from training Bill Kazmaier, was the hammer curl. So the hammer curl develops the brachialis and really, develops a muscle that shows like a bigger arm, like a thickness, a development, and helps with that big forearm. So that becomes very important in the bench press, especially in punching and all the things we did in football. So if Kaz did hammer curls heavy, we were going to do hammer curls. And that that movement ended up being one of my biggest drivers for a big bench. Years later, when I was trying to bench 500 pounds and reached out to Louis Simmons, what do you think one of the main accessory movements that Louis threw at me? Heavy hammer curls, like hundreds, 110s for reps. So that has always found a place in my training programs. If we're going to bench heavy, we're going to do a few movements. One of them's hammer curls. And then we got to be able to really train the triceps. So we're going to start with the hammer curls. The other one, for me personally, was always the standing barbell curl and going real heavy. So back in the day, one of my favorite kind of one-up movements, and especially if we went into a commercial gym, was actually doing a straight bar curl with 225, putting 245s on the other side and standing there and doing 6 to 8 reps straight bar curls. So I found that heavy barbell standing curls were great, not only because the hand was here, but as you kind of came up, normally the movement would start with the elbow flared a little bit, but as you came up, the elbow would come tight to the rib cage and you had to roll through it, which I felt put a ton of mass and strength into those insertions, and especially the top part of the bicep and the shoulder and that biceps tendon. So that was a huge movement for me. We'd start at 135, start stacking plates on there, and eventually trying to get up to 225 for reps. When I started traveling around working with athletes through CrossFit football, people would fail on like a 225 deadlift or a clean, and I'd just be like, oh, hold on, and I'd go over and just fucking curl it for them. And that was always pretty good for blowing people's minds. And just one of those movements. But the reason being is it had always been in my training program, so it wasn't anything new. And then the third piece of the puzzle comes into the tricep. So usually the big primary driver for the tricep in all the power athlete programs is going to be the dip. So, I mean, it's always great for developing chest. I had always done a ton of parallel bar dips. When it came to CrossFit, I saw people doing ring dips, and the problem became very few of them could actually hold the top of the ring and the position without the hands fluttering around like leaves. So, I mean, I always think before I bend anything, whether it be an elbow, a knee, whatever, I have to show proficiency. I have to show stability at the top of the movement. It's how we develop stability, right? Isometric contractions. So when I watch people jump up into a ring, they couldn't hold the ring steady. They hadn't developed the stability to pull it tight. And then they started doing, bending, arms, eccentric, concentric. And then they started kicking their feet and almost doing what they call kipping ring dips. Terrible move. And I saw a ton of injury from it. So in revolt of that a little bit, we programmed parallel fixed bar dips as a greater measure of strength and, more importantly, strength builder. So we use that one, but my other favorite one, and the one that I'm going to show you guys here because we've gone into dips extensively over the years, is actually a laying dumbbell skull crusher with your hands put in a diamond position. So you'll lay down, you get the dumbbell into position, you'll have your hands into a diamond and bring it down. And this one allows for a ton of movement in the triceps and helps get just an incredible pump, really focusing on that last little bit of the push, which was extremely important, especially within the punching motion for offensive line.
Yes, and execution's everything, so pay particular attention to the setup and the arrangement of the humerus as we get into the coaching here, because you can just extend your elbows with this and make it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we'll hand it off to the masters of movement here to set up all these and dial in your execution. Ready.
Hey, I'm John Weld from Power Athlete. A few years ago, we put out a program, How to Build 20-Inch Arms. Thousands of people jumped on and did it, and what they figured out was it was a lot easier to get 20-inch arms if you were a 300-pound NFL player who already had probably 19-inch arms and looked to add a little bit more. But I did put that program out. People got a ton of good stuff out of it, and more importantly, we got a ton of good feedback. So I'm going to take you through 3 of the top movements that we used in the 20-inch arms program to help you build nice, strong, thick arms. First movement in the plan to build 20-inch arms is always going to be the hammer curl. Nice, thick brachialis and giving the illusion of a thick bicep. Chris is going to set up nice and smooth, just bringing the dumbbells up. You might get a little bit of swing, but we're going to look to limit it. All I want to see is smooth and controlled for the hammer curls. Our second movement in the puzzle to developing 20-inch arms, and one of the foundations that you're going to see in just about every program that's worth its salt, even going back to Arnold, is going to be the standing barbell curl. Now, these got to be heavy, but not so heavy that we end up kind of swinging and losing the efficacy of the movement. So as you set up, I want to get the hands into a nice position. From there, you're going to bring the barbell up, and from there, we're going to curl. Set that sucker back down, and we're moving to number 3. For our third piece of the puzzle, developing those 20-inch arms, we've had one that focused on the brachialis, the second one focused on the bicep. Now we're moving to the tricep, which will give us the appearance of a nice, thick, strong arm, because a good set of triceps never go unnoticed. I got Dr. Manzanis set up on the floor into my floor ground laying position, and what he's going to do is he's going to take the dumbbell up in a good diamond position above his face, and we're going to do a skull crusher from the ground. As he brings it down, nice and controlled, touch the forehead with a kiss, and extend back up. The trick to this is really controlling it, but also working on that full extension, really flexing the tricep and getting a good mind-muscle connection. For this movement and many other that helps us develop athletic muscle, come check us out at powerathletehq.com/training.
Welcome back. You should have just seen how to craft a set of 20-inch arms using heavy hammer curls, heavy standing barbell curls, and then also my lying dumbbell or lying diamond dumbbell skull crusher. So that 3 movement, I'm getting a little wordy on these movements.
Diamond Dallas Page.
DDP. But incredible movements for building big, thick arms. So you want to get 20-inch arms, this is the road, and it's a winner. Now, as we transition into what we're going to refer to as our transitional movements.
There you go. Beautiful. We introduced the strong foundation, strong base, the unilateral variation of one of our foundational movements, the squat. So foundational movements, these are squat, step, and lunge. We're going to master these, whether it's barbell, dumbbell. We're going to find a way to load them and get very strong, proficient, and controlled in all of them. Once our athletes establish proficiency, then in the weight room, a very controlled environment, we give them the opportunity to target athleticism. And how we accomplish that is through a transitional movement, meaning we take the squat into a lunge. We take the lunge into a step up, and we start to combine these foundational primal movement patterns and get creative. What we're going to do is introduce one that involves the squat, the lunge, and the step up. Very foundational within the transitional, but don't be afraid to combine these in different variations so you can test your athlete. So more on that, but this is just a simple introduction to athleticism. And the definition of athleticism is, John?
The ability to seamlessly and effortlessly combine primal movement patterns through space to accomplish a known or novel task. So as we get up in this setup, we're going to actually find different ways to challenge it. Whether it be a kettlebells, dumbbells, we can use weighted vests, heavy sandbags. There's a million different ways to load it. That's what makes this so amazing. But we're going to start with our foundational movement, which is the X. And remember, we're moving in a sagittal plane. He's moving forward and back. Now, we can always throw some other different variations if we wanted to move into those transverse and also those frontal planes, but we're going to keep it simple on this one, just because we're focusing on mastery of movement. So Chris is going to go from his X-axis. He's going to step.
Which is the squat.
And he's going to step into his lunge, and then he's going to transition into his step up, and then he's going to go back down in reverse order. What is really important in this, we start talking about athleticism, more importantly, the language of movement. Think about English language, for example. These sounds tied together end up eliciting a response. So they're not just auditory noises, but they've been crafted in such a way that I can display a message. Same thing with athleticism. This is the language of movement. This is what we understand as a language of athleticism, the ability to seamlessly and effortlessly combine X, Y, and Z axis to accomplish something. And the seamless and effortless combination of these 3 movements is what we know as athleticism. So what we ended up doing long ago within Power Athlete is figuring out that if you can define athleticism and understand the pieces and the components, I can train them in individual places. But at some point I have to start tying them together and speaking the language of athleticism to be athletic. So these transitional movements and the way that we're doing this X, Y, and Z is just one of the ways that and this is kind of our introduction. This is our first step into
primal complex, step into it. John, I like that pun. And what I want you to pay particular attention to as the very masculine, powerful athlete that's demoing this moves through it, it is seamless. So as soon as the transition from the squat to the step, it's not a pause. There's no gathering. It's going from one step and one primal into the others. So look for that pause, look for that hesitation, look for that imbalance between right and left. Anything that doesn't necessarily look right within your athletes, but they need more opportunity, and believe it or not, they need more weight, they need more exposure, and that'll put them in a position for when they transition from your training in the weight room to practice, really problem solving with their body. And then, this is an excellent way to bridge that gap from weight room strength to the arena.
Sure.
Let's have a look.
Hey, I'm John Welborn from Power Athlete, and I'm here to help you develop athletic muscle. You're going to see a ton of people at the Globo within the internet that have pretty good show muscles, but I'm not training those. I'm looking for go muscles. I want you to maximize and develop your athleticism and create your most athletic self. Now, this is going to require some different movements, us moving through space, and more importantly, utilizing our X, Y, and Z axis, or what we commonly refer to, or what you might understand as squat, lunge, and step. Now, as we move through this complex, this is going to help you challenge posture and position and create your best athlete. My goal is to maximize athletic potential and make you the best athlete you can be. The road to developing athletic muscle is never an easy one. So we're looking to start combining primal patterns to allow you to seamlessly and effortlessly move through space and help develop that level of athleticism. Chris is going to take you through one of our primal patterns that allows you to combine X, Y, and Z axis and developing that seamless and effortless. Mr. McQuilkin is going to bring that dumbbell up into a goblet squat position. We're going to start with our X axis, which is a squat. He's going to transition into a lunge, and then immediately head into a step up. Back down, other one. From there, he's going to go in reverse with a reverse lunge, and finish with our X axis. Now, he's using a dumbbell and a goblet squat, but we can use everything from a kettlebell to a safety bar squat to sandbags, really anything that you have to challenge posture and position and allow us to demonstrate athleticism by seamlessly and effortlessly moving through our primal patterns. For this movement and many other that helps us develop athletic muscle, come check us out at powerathletehq.com/training.
All right, so that is our transitional movements and what we show about primal proficiency and challenging. There's different ways to weight it, there's different ways to attack it, but really what I want to focus on is really matching the intensity in the movement with weight. So for example, if you overweight it and the quality of the movement goes down, you've effectively gone too heavy. So there becomes a absence of ego where now weight and movement, and more importantly, the perfection of movement, dictates how heavy to go. We wanted to go just heavy enough to challenge it, but not so heavy that we're actually doing crappy movement for execution. So
Some would say boiling point, not breaking point.
I like it. That's a good one. We'll stay with that. So be smart with it. And then also realize this is just one variation. There's a million different variations, and it's only limited by your creativity.
Yes, and you will find this primal complex on training programs such as Bedrock, Field Strong, Third Monkey for sure, and I imagine Hammer. We get a little bit action in here.
Yeah, the transitional movements we'll do with Hammer usually involve maybe not tying them together in the same space, but we'll squat heavy. They do some form of lateral steps and jumps. I mean, there's other ways to do it.
Yeah,
the concept is always going to be universal, especially in the PAP, which is the post-activation potentiation, and also the French contrast that we use in the training programs. So there's always going to be elements of something heavy, something dynamic, something explosive, and we're moving through it. But this is just one example, these transitional movements.
Yes, and if you're out there entering into the group fitness realm or stepping into the gym, make some friends, throw these challenges at them, and see how they're able to handle them. We assure you, following our training program, you'll, dominate, be in a position to express athleticism seamless and effortlessly.
Nice.
To find a training program that's specific to your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training. And if you're looking to get a great deal throughout the year, from now until the end of January, if you purchase one full year of training, you will receive a lot of bonus. John, what exactly are they in for once they sign up for an annual training?
Yeah, you sign up for the annual training. We're going to gift you 2 resources to allow you to reach your goals in 2023. The first one is going to be one of our nutrition templates. So I just went back and redid all of our nutrition templates. 3 very concrete plans of attack on how to lean, if you're looking to lean out, if you're looking to bulk, or importantly, you're looking to recomp using some of our keto carb cycling. So I went back and redid them, did new FAQs, what to eat, and created a whole bunch of new information. So I'm excited to be able to give out this newest version of our nutrition templates to you. And then the other one is a one-on-one 15-minute consult. One of the ways that we've guaranteed success is by plugging people in with power athlete coaches, part of our team with Chris and I and the guys that are here, to allow you to create the best environment possible by putting a concrete game plan together, answer any questions, whether it be nutrition, training, whatever it looks like, and get you on the right path. Once we create that concrete plan of attack, helping you implement it and getting you headed in the right direction. We have a ton of connectivity within the training programs on Train Heroic, whether it be in the team feed, direct message, or within the daily comments on the training program. So through there, social media, Facebook pages, whatever it looks like, you have access to the coaches and you're not in this thing alone. We're going to help you get as far as we can. What do they say? If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with the team. We're providing that team. We're providing the resources, and we're helping you get as far as you can.
No man is an island.
Rule 76, play like a champion.
No excuses. Play
like a champion.
All right, that's our first podcast of the year.
I'm excited. Yeah, we did it.
Welcome to 2023. This is just the third installment of a full 10-episode Move the Dirt series. We've already heard from John and Rudy. We got awesome guests in store. We're talking fasting. I believe that one's next. We're talking fasting. We're talking goal setting. Getting started. So if you have an individual in your life that is just getting into fitness, here's what to expect from mental, emotional, physical. So we got a good one there. All sorts of things. So tune in throughout the month of January for a full Move the Dirt series. And if you are into some annual training and want to commit and stop wasting, time, money, effort, all that bullshit, then get on board. PowerAthleteHQ.com/training. Bye. This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market.
We've built our online training business by partnering with Train Heroic and helping us deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training.
And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best tech and training, go to trainheroic.co/powerathletehq.